They walked the rest of the way, past more cook fires and more tents, with Ghost following at their heels. Jon had never seen so many wildlings. He wondered if anyone ever had. The camp goes on forever, he reflected, but it's more 100 camps than one, and each more vulnerable than the last. Stretched out over long leagues, the wildlings had no defense to speak of, no pits nor sharpened stakes, only a small group of outriders patrolling their perimeters. Each group or clan or village had simply stopped where they wanted, as soon as they saw others stopping or found a likely spot. The free folk. If his brothers were to catch them in such disarray, many of them would pay for that freedom with their life's blood. They had numbers, but the Night's Watch had discipline, and in battle, discipline beats numbers 9 times of every 10, his father had once told him. Hey, folks, before I go any further, just want to make sure I'm sounding good. I had to use a backup microphone due to some software issues, so I just want to make sure I'm coming through appropriately. It looks like I am. Let me know if it's overdriven. Last time we started with the overdriven microphone, and it was no good. Oh, thanks, Call. Okay, so I'll keep on with the reading. This is obviously A Storm of Swords, Jon Snow walking up to the wildling camp, and I see a couple questions coming in. Just hold those for a second. We're going to do about 10 minutes of Mance Raydar introductory reading here, and then we'll open it up. So Jon's walking up to the camp, and it says, "There was no doubting which tent was the king's. It was thrice the size of the next largest he'd seen, and he could hear music drifting from within. Like many of the lesser tents, it was made of sewn hides, with fur still on. But Mance Raydar's hides were the shaggy white pelts of snow bears. The peaked roof was crowned with a huge set of antlers from one of the giant elks that had once roamed freely through the 7 kingdoms in the times of the first men. Here at least they found defenders, 2 guards at the flap of the tent, leaning on tall spears with round leather shields strapped to their arms. When they caught sight of Ghost, one of them lowered his spear point and said, 'That beast stays here.' 'Ghost, stay,' Jon commanded. The direwolf sat. 'Good boy.' Longspear, watch the beast." Rattleshirt yanked open the tent and gestured Jon and Ygritte inside. The tent was hot and smoky. Baskets of burning peat stood in all 4 corners, filling the air with a dim reddish light. More skins carpeted the ground. Jon felt utterly alone as he stood there in his blacks, awaiting the pleasure of the turncloak who called himself king beyond the wall. When his eyes had adjusted to the smoky red gloom, he saw 6 people, none of whom paid him any mind. A dark young man and a pretty blonde woman were sharing a horn of mead. A pregnant woman stood over a brazier, cooking a brace of hens, while a gray-haired man in the tattered cloak of black and red sat cross-legged on a pillow, playing a lute and singing. "The Dornishman's wife was as fair as the sun, and her kisses were warmer than spring. But the Dornishman's blade was made of black steel, and its kiss was a terrible thing." Jon knew the song, though it was strange to hear it. Here, in a shaggy hide tent beyond the wall, 10,000 leagues from the red mountains and warm winds of Dorne. Rattleshirt took off his yellowed helm as he waited for the song to end. Beneath his bone and leather armor, he was a small man, and the face under the giant skull was ordinary, with a knobby chin, thin mustache, and sallow, pinched cheeks. His eyes were close set, one eyebrow creeping all the way across his forehead, dark hair thinning back from a sharp widow's peak. "The Dornishman's wife would sing as she bathed, in a voice that was sweet as a peach. But the Dornishman's blade had a song of its own, and it bite sharp as cold as a leech." Beside the brazier, a short but immensely broad man sat on a stool, eating a hen off a skewer. Hot grease was running down his chin and into his snow-white beard, but he smiled happily all the same. Thick gold bands graven with runes bound his massive arms, and he wore a heavy shirt of black ringmail that could only have come from a dead ranger. A few feet away, a taller, leaner man in a leather-sewn shirt with bronze scales stood frowning over a map, 2-handed greatsword slung across his back in a leather sheath. He was as straight as a spear, all long, wiry muscle, clean-shaved, bald, and with a straight, strong nose and deep-set gray eyes. He might have even been comely if he'd had ears, but he had lost both along the way, whether to frostbite or some enemy's knife, Jon could not tell. Their lack made the man's head seem narrow and pointed. Both the white-bearded man and the bald one were warriors. That was plain to Jon at a glance. These 2 are more dangerous than Rattleshirt by far. He wondered which was Mance Raydar. As he lay on the ground with the darkness around and the taste of his blood on his tongue. That's right, I'm singing this week, Quinn. His brothers knelt by him and prayed him a prayer, and he smiled and he laughed and he sung. Brothers, oh brothers, my days here are done. The Dornishman's taken my life. But what does it matter, for all men must die, and I've tasted the Dornishman's wife. As the last strains of the Dornishman's wife faded, the bald, earless man glanced up from his map and scowled ferociously at Rattleshirt and Ygritte, with Jon between them. What's this? He said. A crow? The black bastard what gutted Orell, said Rattleshirt, and a bloody warg as well. You were to kill them all. This one come over, explained Ygritte. He slew Qhorin Halfhand with his own hand. This boy? The earless man was angered by the news. The Halfhand should have been mine. Do you have a name, Crow? Jon Snow, your grace. He wondered whether he was expected to bend the knee as well. Your grace? The earless man looked at the big, white-bearded one. You see, he takes me for a king. The bearded man laughed so hard he sprayed bits of chicken everywhere. He rubbed the grease from his mouth with the back of a huge hand. A blind boy must be. Who ever heard of a king without ears? Why, his crown would fall straight down to his neck. Har! He grinned at Jon, wiping his fingers clean on his breeches. Close your beak, Crow. Spin yourself around. Might be you'll find who you're looking for. Jon turned. The singer rose to his feet. I'm Mance Raydar, he said as he put aside the lute. And you are Ned Stark's bastard, the Snow of Winterfell. Stunned, Jon stood speechless for a moment before he recovered enough to say, How could you know? That's a tale for later, said Mance Raydar. How do you like the song, lad? Well enough, I've heard it before. But what does it matter, for all men must die, the king beyond the wall said lightly, and I have tasted the Dornishman's wife. Tell me, does my lord of bones speak truly? Did you slay my old friend, the Halfhand? I did, though it was more his doing than mine. The Shadow Tower will never again seem as fearsome, the king said with sadness in his voice. Qhorin was my enemy, but also my brother once. So, shall I thank you for killing him, Jon Snow, or curse you? He gave Jon a mocking smile. The king beyond the wall looked nothing like a king, nor even much like a wildling. He was of middling height, slender, sharp-faced, with shrewd brown eyes and long brown hair that had gone mostly to gray. There was no crown on his head, nor gold rings on his arms, no jewels at his throat, not even a gleam of silver. He wore wool and leather, and his only garment of note was his ragged black wool cloak, its long tears patched with faded red silk. You ought to thank me for killing your enemy, Jon said finally, and curse me for killing your friend. Arr, boomed the white-bearded man. Well answered. Agreed. And then they go on. Let's see. I think that's as far as I wanted to read. What do you think, guys? Should I read the whole interchange here? It's only 6 minutes. Yeah, I'll keep going. Why not? Sure. Where was we? Actually, no, it's going to be too long. It's like the whole chapter. The best part of it is essentially when Jon and Mance are exchanging their stories of having why did they quit the watch. So I'll go ahead and skip to that part. I'll read that last bit. Let's see here. I would be pleased to eat, your grace, and thank you. Your grace, the king smiled. It's not a style one often hears from the lips of free folk. I am Mance to most, the Mance to some. Will you take a horn of mead? Gladly, said Jon. The king poured himself as Dalla cut the well-crisped hens apart and brought them each a half. Jon peeled off his gloves and ate with his fingers, sucking every morsel of meat off the bones. Tormund spoke truly, said Mance Raydar as he ripped apart a loaf of bread. The black crow is a tricksy bird, that's so. But I was a crow when you were no bigger than the babe in Dalla's belly, Jon Snow. So take care not to play tricksy with me. As you say, you're Mance. The king laughed. You're Mance. Why not? I promised you a tale before of how I knew you. Have you puzzled it out yet? Jon shook his head. Did Rattleshirt send word ahead? By wing? We have no trained ravens. No, I knew your face. I've seen it before. Twice. It made no sense at first, but as Jon turned it over in his mind, dawn broke. When you were a brother of the watch. Very good. Yes, that was the first time. You were just a boy, and I was all in black, one of a dozen riding escort to old Lord Commander Corgyle when he came down to see your father at Winterfell. I was walking the wall around the yard when I came on you and your brother Rob. It had snowed the night before, and the two of you had built a great mountain above the gate and were waiting for someone likely to pass underneath. I remember, said Jon with a startled laugh. A young black brother on the wall walk. Yes. You swore not to tell. And kept my vow, that one at least. We dumped the snow on Fat Tom. He was father's slowest guardsman. Tom had chased them around the yard afterward until all three were red as autumn's apples. But you said you saw me twice. When was the other time? When King Robert came to Winterfell to make your father hand, the king beyond the wall said lightly. Jon's eyes widened in disbelief. That can't be so. It was. When your father learned the king was coming, he sent word to his brother Benjen on the wall so he might come down for the feast. There is more commerce between the Black Brothers and the Free Folk than you know, and soon enough word came to my ears as well. It was too choice a chance to resist. Your uncle did not know me by sight, so I had no fear from that quarter, and I did not think your father was like to remember a young crow he'd met briefly years before. I wanted to see this Robert with my own eyes, king to king, and get the measure of your uncle Benjen as well. He was first ranger by then, and the bane of all my people. So I saddled my fleetest horse and rode. But, Jon objected, the wall. The wall can stop an army, but not a man alone. I took a lute and a bag of silver, scaled the ice near Longbarrow, walked a few leagues south of the New Gift, and bought a horse. All in all, I made much better time than Robert, who was traveling with a great ponderous wheelhouse to keep his queen in comfort. A day south of Winterfell, I came upon him and fell in with his company. Free riders and hedge knights are always attaching themselves to royal processions in hopes of finding service with the king, and my lute gained me easy acceptance. He laughed. I know every bawdy song that's ever been made, north or south of the wall. So there you are. The night your father feasted Robert, I sat in the back of his hall on a bench with the other free riders, listening to Orland of Oldtown play the high harp and sing of dead kings beneath the sea. I betook of your lord father's meat and mead, had a look at the Kingslayer and the imp, and made passing note of Lord Eddard's children and the wolf pups that ran at their heels. Bael the Bard, said Jon, remembering the tale Ygritte had told him in the Frostfangs the night he'd almost killed her. Would that I were. I would not deny that Bael's exploit inspired mine own, but I did not steal either of your sisters that I recall. Bael wrote his own songs and lived them. I only sing the songs that better men have made. More mead? No, said Jon. If you had been discovered, taken, your father would have had my head off, the king gave a shrug. Though once I had eaten at his board, I was protected by guest right. The laws of hospitality are as old as the first men and as sacred as a heart tree. He gestured at the board between them, the broken bread and chicken bones. Here you are my guest, and safe from harm at my hands. This night, at least. So tell me truly, Jon Snow, are you a craven who turned your cloak from fear, or is there another reason that brings you to my tent? Guest writer no. Jon Snow knew he was walking on rotten ice here. One false step and he might plunge through into cold water enough to stop his heart. Weigh every word before you speak it, he told himself. He took a long draught of mead / Red Bull to buy time for his answer. When he set the horn aside, I should have. Next time I'll put my Red Bull in the drinking horn like a proper wildling. Anyways, so he says, tell me why you turned your cloak and I'll tell you why I turned mine. Mance Raydar smiled as Jon hoped he would. The king was plainly a man who liked the sound of his own voice. You will have heard stories of my desertion, I have no doubt. Some say it was for a crown. Some say for a woman. Others say that you had the wildling blood. Oh my goodness, I've accidentally set off the super chat theremin. I suppose this is a good time to break in and let you know that you can support the program by going to paypal.me/mythicalastronomy. Oh yes, I'll be checking my email periodically throughout the live stream. You can attach a question in the notes field or the comments field of that. Or you can also do the super chat, of course, through YouTube. And either of those sets off the super chat theremin. But back to the reading. The wildling blood is the blood of the first men, the same blood that flows in the veins of the Starks. As to a crown, do you see one? I see a woman. He glanced at Dalla. Mance took her by the hand and pulled her close. My lady is blameless. I met her on my return from your father's castle. The half hand was carved of old oak, but I am made of flesh. And I have a great fondness for the charms of women, which makes me no different than 3/4 of the watch. There are men still wearing black who have had 10 times as many women as this poor king. You must guess again, Jon Snow. Jon considered a moment. The half-hand said you had a passion for wildling music. I do. That's closer to the mark, yes, but not a hit. Mance Raydar rose, unfastened the clasp that held his cloak, and swept it over the bench. It was for this. A cloak? A black wool cloak of a sworn brother of the Night's Watch, said the king beyond the wall. One day on arranging, we brought down a fine big elk. We were skinning it when the smell of blood drew a shadow cat out of its lair. I drove it off, but not before it shredded my cloak to ribbons. Do you see? Here, and here. He chuckled. It shredded my arm and back as well, and I bled worse than the elk. My brothers feared I might die before they got me to Maester Mullen at the Shadow Tower, so they carried me to a wildling village where we knew an old wise woman did some healing. She was dead as it happened, but her daughter saw to me, cleaned my wounds, sewed me up, and fed me porridge and potions until I was strong enough to ride again. And she sewed up the rents in my cloak as well, with some scarlet silk from a shy that her grandmother had pulled from the wreck of a cog washed up on the frozen shore. It was the greatest treasure she had, and her gift to me. He swept the cloak back over his shoulders. But at the Shadow Tower, I was given a new wool cloak from the stores, black and trimmed with black, to go with my black breeches and black boots, my black doublet and black mail. The new cloak had no frays, nor rips, nor tears, and most of all, no red. The men of the Night's Watch dressed in black, Sir Dennis Mallister reminded me sternly, as if I had forgotten. My old cloak was fit for burning now, he said. I left the next morning for a place where a kiss was not a crime, and a man could wear any cloak he chose. He closed the clasp and sat back down again. And you, Jon Snow? Jon took another swallow of mead. There's only one tale he might believe. You say you were at Winterfell, the night my father feasted King Robert. I did say it, for I was. Then you saw us all, Prince Joffrey and Prince Tommen, Princess Myrcella, my brothers Robb and Bran and Rickon, my sisters Arya and Sansa. You saw them mark the center aisle with every eye upon them, take their seats at the table just below the dais where the king and queen were seated. I remember. And did you see where I was seated, Mance? He leaned forward. Did you see where they put the bastard? Mance Raydar looked at Jon's face for a long moment. I think we had best find you a new cloak, the king said, holding out his hand. All right, so that is the introduction of Mance Raydar. Let's Mance. Dun, dun, dun. I do have Let's Mance lyrics, by the way. The problem with me presenting them to you right now is that I cannot play a backing track of music to Mance to, or else I will be demonetized because of copyright reasons. So I'd have to do it a cappella, which is tough. But what I was thinking about doing is maybe kicking out a fun live stream here at night one time and doing some filks, some songs. It won't be a monetized stream. That way we can use background music and stuff. I have both Let's Mance and I have Never Gonna Mance Again. So I've got a couple of Mance treats up my sleeve, but let's set that aside and get serious here. So that was Mance Raydar. Tons of stuff to dig into there in that opening section. We are, of course, going to go through all of the deeds of Mance Raydar, basically first, as we've been doing with the character study streams. So far, of course, we've done Cold Hands and Sam, so don't miss those. Put on your red striped cloak and dance the blues. Bow, bow, bow. Yeah, no, it's here. Safety Mance. I'll tell you what I'll do is, oh gosh, I'm teasing y'all too bad. Here, let me go to the, go down here. I think I put no, I didn't. Never mind. Okay. Yeah, enough tomfoolery. I'll tell you what, at the end of the stream, I'll show you my lyrics for Let's Mance and Never Gonna Mance Again. How about that? But I want to keep the flow going here. So we just read the intro. Like I said, support the program here, paypal.me, mythical astronomy. You can do the super chat. I'm writing a book. I have an Indiegogo. It's right here. I'm putting it in the chat right now. Bloody StreamYard, come back to me. There you are. So go check that out. It should be also in the description of the video. It's about symbolism and mythology. I've talked about it a few times, so check out the link. Watch the Eve Did Nothing Wrong video. That gives you the idea of what the book is about. So that's very cool. Also been selling t-shirts. You guys have been buying them. Mostly ladies so far. Come on, guys. Buy some t-shirts. And there's the link for that. Teespring. I got 3 designs up so far. Got some more coming. But guys, that intro was incredible because it's full of symbolism and it's full of themes. It's explaining the function of the character. It's got references to Herne the Hunter and Hermes and all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of exploding there. But the first thing I want to talk about is specifically this tent. All right, I want to get right into the mythology first, because I think this helps frame the role. So if you're a student of mythology, there's a couple of things that come up as soon as we see this tent. It's a white snow bear tent, and it's got a rack of great elk antlers. Same thing that Cold Hands is riding, the great elk. So we're talking about no, there's no private Mance. This is all in the public sphere here. This is the same sort of great elk, the Irish elk. This rack of antlers, 10 feet across. You guys know the drill. I've ranted and raved about the elk enough times. By the way, I got my weird face back up here from the old wall of cool. Yes. So here's the thing. The white elk, the white stag, is a very well-known mythical symbol. George uses it in a few places, and it's associated with our old friend Herne the Hunter. That's right. The same mythical figure that Cold Hands is directly drawn from, and also, of course, the backdrop of House Tarly with Herndon of the Horn and Harlan the Hunter, as we talked about last week on the Samwell stream. So we've got yet another Herne the Hunter reference when we come and meet the King Beyond the Wall. And the King Beyond the Wall is very much an archetypal role, just like King of Winter, Summer King, all the Garth figures that we see, Night's Queen figures, Nissa figures. The King Beyond the Wall is its own sort of archetype. So we're going to develop that today as we talk about Mance, since he's obviously the King Beyond the Wall. But the first thing that we're seeing here is this Herne the Hunter association. The white stag is seen as an incarnation of Herne the Hunter. And it's also a mythical symbol that's associated with other ideas that sort of overlap. So in Celtic folklore, it's seen as, here, let me just actually pull this straight from Wikipedia. Okay, so the Celtic people consider them to be messengers from the other world. Oh, that's interesting. They also played an important role in other pre-Indo-European cultures, especially in the north. The Celts believed that the white stag would appear when one was transgressing a taboo, such as when Will trespassed into Arwan's hunting grounds. Oh, that's interesting, because in the prologue, we've got a character named Will, who I believe went to the wall for trespassing on someone's hunting grounds. Yes, that's right. So then in Arthurian legend, this creature has this magical ability to sort of evade capture. And then the pursuit of the white stag represents mankind's spiritual quest. And it also signaled the time was nigh for knights of the kingdom to pursue a quest. And it also sort of represents, like I said, it's not even about catching the stag. It's about pursuing the stag. The Cub Scouts even, the Boy Scouts rather, adopted the white stag and talked about it as a symbol of like pursuing curiosity. It's not about actually catching and killing the thing, but about where the thing leads you. So a lot of you guys might be thinking of King Robert. And by the way, sorry, let me do this here. I've got a white stag for you. Boom. There we go. There's a white stag. And of course, you guys know about Herne the Hunter. I've showed you pictures of Herne a couple times. That's him. He's basically Cold Hands. He's a little sexier here in this one, but this is essentially Cold Hands. He's a ghost, guards the forest, bloody. Hopefully you guys all watched the Sam stream last week or have seen the Green Zombies. so you know what's up with that. But yes, the white stag. I've got a great painting of the white stag, don't I, somewhere? Where's this it? Okay, so there you go. So like I said, King Robert, right before he died, was hunting a white stag in the woods. And yes, Michael, you're right. It also symbolizes the crossing between the borders. That's how it works in Narnia. I'll bring that up in just a second. So Robert was chasing the white stag and in the Kingswood when right before he was killed by the boar. And he lost the stag and then chased the boar instead and died. So you can see like Robert's like this last quest for vitality and youth, but he doesn't catch it. And instead he gets the demon boar and he's killed. And then he crosses over to the realm of death. So the thing about Herne the Hunter is that he's a psychopomp. And of course, a psychopomp is any sort of figure that is a sort of guardian of the crossings or someone who enables the crossings of two realms between the realm of men and the other world, between, you know, life and death. Any sort of figure who manages that crossing is a psychopomp figure. Helps people's souls cross over to the afterlife. That's what Herne the Hunter and Cernunnos and all the horned god figures are doing. And so the white stag being an incarnation of Herne the Hunter and a symbol of transgressing on the other world, it basically means that, like, you're on the border, you're playing with forces that you don't understand, and you might need to back up, or else you'll find yourself in another realm. And of course, in the Chronicles of Narnia, when they go through the wardrobe, they catch sight of the white stag and chase it through the woods, and that's how they lose the wardrobe and fully cross over into Narnia. So it's directly doing the psychopomp role right there. So very cool stuff. And like I said, we meet Mance Raydar, and his tent, like I said, it's a snow bear hide with the antlers on top. So it basically looks like a white stag. So what does Mance Raydar do? Well, he crosses over the wall back and forth, right? The wall is the biggest symbol of the sort of the veil of tears, or the veil between life and death, between the other world. Literally, the others live over there across the wall. And Mance Raydar, he's king of the land beyond the wall. So he's king of the other world, essentially. But he can cross over into the realm of men and back, which is very cool, right? It's very cool psychopomp stuff. And it makes Mance a very powerful and transcendent figure. And if you think about jumping ahead, of course, to when in A Dance with Dragons, when Rattleshirt, glamored as Mance, is burned in the Weirwood cage at the wall, and then Mance, glamored, goes on to Winterfell. We're going to talk about that scene in more detail, but that's more symbolism where Mance, he crosses the wall and one identity is burned, and he takes on a new identity in order to continue south of the wall. So again, it's more psychopomp stuff, more crossing over, and it's also trickster stuff. It's Hermes stuff. And so Hermes / Mercury is a very interesting mythological figure. And it's one that I identify with quite a lot. While chatting mythology with a very close friend of mine, we were talking about Hermes, or Mercury, and Venus. And the cool thing about Mercury and Venus is, you guys know all about the Venus symbolism, right? How for a certain period of time, 200 and some days, it appears at night as the even star, and then it crosses over across the face of the sun or behind the sun, and it appears as the morning star. It sort of switches back and forth, right? Well, that happens because Venus is closer to the sun than the Earth. So it can never be far from the sun from our perspective. The same is true of Mercury. It's just not as bright as Venus, but it does the same sort of. Yes, can I help you? Oh, you're looking for that?
Yeah.
That stuff? Okay.
You killed all my OG.
Oh, I didn't kill it.
Oh, fucking cheaper.
I gave it a home.
No, I'm kidding.
Careful! Don't demonetize me here with loose lips. So we're following the course of the white stag here through the woods. It's magical and enchanting, like Legend of Narnia. You remember the white stag from Narnia, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is an incarnation of Herne the Hunter, it turns out. Oh yeah, that stuff's really good.
There's always white stags. There's a white stag in Harry Potter as well.
Yes, there is, totally.
Patronus, Harry's Patronus, and also his father's Patronus.
And what does the Patronus do?
It drives away the Dementors, the dark spirits that drain away all the light and hope and happiness.
And it's sent by his future self, right?
Yes.
Right. So it's very much like a messenger from the other world kind of a thing.
Totally.
There you go. See, if you want to be a good author, you want to write Narnia or you want to write, Harry Potter, you got to know your mythology, man. Song of Ice and Fire. So, of course, you guys know, George does mythology in his books just, to the max. But I do always, or sometimes like to point out that it's not unique. George is just participating in a literary tradition. And really, I think this is what most good writers do, is draw upon mythology. But in any case. So where were we here? We were talking about, we were just switching over to talk about Hermes. So I was saying that Mercury and Venus both have a similar type of an action where they appear as a morning star and an even star, and they switch back and forth. Cool thing about Mercury is it goes around the sun in only 88 days. So it's fast. And that's the whole thing about the Hermes Mercury mythological figure. He is the messenger of the gods. He is very fast. He's got the winged shoes, and often he's got the winged cap. I need to get a winged cap. I wish I had that prop today, but I don't. And the whole thing about the winged cap is Mance has that symbol. It's not in the passage we just read. It's actually in the next one when Jon sees him at the Fist of the First Men. He's got his war helm on, and it's got the winged helmet. I've got that in the title picture of this one that we used by Diego Gisbert Lorenz as the artist here. I'll maximize it so you can see it. So you can see he's got the winged helm there. Yeah, rendered very nicely. Hey, Des Cobra, getting the theremin loose. Ooh, that's a $20 one. I will engage the whammy for you. Rayder seems to have a lot of fire references. What do you think? Yes, he does. One of the things we're going to get into with the symbolism is that the King Beyond the Wall is telling us a lot about Azor Ahai as Night's King. When Azor Ahai becomes Night's King, he essentially is now the King Beyond the Wall. And so we're going to see a lot of that symbolism. There's a lot of foreshadowing for Jon with Mance. So we're going to see, the red and black reminds you of Targaryen symbolism, even though Mance is not Rhaegar. Definitely not Rhaegar. Think about this. Let's address this right now. Folks, friends, I love Rhaegar. There's part of me that would want to see Rhaegar alive and on the pages of A Song of Ice and Fire, but it's not happening. He's dead. The whole reason he's dead is because that's his role in the story. He was Prince Charming. He was supposed to beat the big brutish bully king, Robert, the drunkard. Rhaegar was, he into poetry and song, and he was going to be a good king instead of his mad father. But then he died. That's the whole, it's like the twist of A Song of Ice and Fire. Like right from the beginning, it's like, where is the valiant Prince Charming? Well, he died 17 years ago and the other guy won. Like that's part of the weird setup of A Song of Ice and Fire. So bringing Rhaegar back to life would completely screw that up. His place in the story is now occupied by Jon and Dany. So there's just no room for Rhaegar to come back. It's just not. But furthermore, think about this. Let's think about this. Mance Raydar just said that he snuck into Winterfell when King Robert was there. Benjen, Ned Stark, Cersei, all these people, okay? If he was Rhaegar, he wouldn't have done that, guys. He would have been recognized by somebody, and he never would have taken that risk. If he was trying to hide and remain anonymous, he wouldn't do that. And somebody would have recognized him at the Shadow Tower during the 6 years that he was there, because he's much, much too famous a person to hide as a high-ranking Night's Watch officer. It doesn't make any sense. So just putting that down. And no, he's not. I've got it wrong. So Mance is Arthur Dayne. Is that? No, he's not. He's not Arthur Dayne either. For the same reasons. Arthur Dayne is way too famous of a person. There's not room for him in the plot, and he would be recognized both at the Shadow Tower and at Winterfell. And don't give me this stuff about people don't recognize each other that well in medieval times and this and that. Rhaegar is a famous MFer, and somebody would recognize him, and then the whispers would start, and it's just not what you would do if you were trying to remain anonymous. If you're trying to fake your own death and hide, you do what John Connington did. You spread a believable story, and then you go to a different continent You have rich friends to help you make it happen. Anyways, I still love you guys, though. Keep on believing right up until, the dream of spring. That's cool. So Rhaegar does, Mance Rhaegar, Mance Raydar. Mance Raydar does have the red and black symbolism. He does have fire symbolism because he's showing us about Azor Ahai becoming Night's King. But I don't want to get too far ahead into that. So Yensid says, happy holidays. He could have dyed his hair and wore contacts. Yeah, totally. There you go. Medieval contacts. Those are definitely a thing. So where were we? Let's put the split screen back up. How'd you like my rant? Was that good? That wasn't too ranty, right? So yeah, we're going to talk about Bael the Bard. Absolutely. Definitely going to talk about Bael the Bard. And guys, I will recommend as an adjunct to this one, if you have not listened to Blood of the Other One, a Baelish Bard and a Promised Prince, all of the Bard parallels in A Song of Ice and Fire are there. All of the Mance parallels are there. The deep dive into the symbolism is there. So I'm not going to repeat everything I said in there, but the Bard parallels are ridiculous. There are so many Bard figures, people named Bael. It's just absurd. We're going to talk about a few of them today, but it goes on and on. So if you enjoyed Mance, definitely check out Blood of the Other, a Baelish Bard, and a Promised Prince. Thank you, Two Ravens. I'm going to turn the delay up here a bit. That's better. All right. Dornishman's Wife. Is it about Night's King? It can be read as being about Azor Ahai, especially the Dornishman's blade was made of black steel and its bite was sharp and cold as a leech. Well, this starts to sound a lot like Ned's sword Ice. Okay, so a black steel is Valyrian steel. Like that's what black steel is. So you've got a guy with a black steel sword and its bite is sharp and cold as a leech. Well, Craster specifically compares frostbite and leech bites to Valyrian steel, the bite of the steel and the frostbite and all this stuff. So there's this running motif about a black sword that's cold to the touch. It bites like frostbite. And a leech also sucks blood. If you think of Lightbringer, it literally drank Nissa's blood. Nissa's blood and soul and spirit went into the blade. So Lightbringer drank Nissa's blood like a leech. So, yeah, there's a lot pointing to Azor Ahai there. And it sounds like somebody who's just, when he said he's tasted the Dornishman's wife, I think that's actually the sword. There's a lot of symbolism about people's weapons being, married to them and stuff. So when he says he's tasted the Dornishman's wife, like he's tasted the sword. I think that's what it's talking about. And yes, Primus sucks. Thank you. And that's, by the way, if you guys don't know, Primus fans say Primus sucks. Les one time said Primus sucks, and everyone says it now. It doesn't mean that you hate Primus. It means you like Primus. So, yeah. Well, obviously there's double entendres happening there for sure. But ultimately, if you're looking for symbolism decoding, it sounds like Azor Ahai's blade. So it could be, you could read it either way. It could be like, I don't know. It's I don't know if it's Last Hero or if it's Night's King's perspective, but somebody's just been killed by a black sword. That's what I make of it. So here we go. So now Hermes. That's where we were. So Mance Raydar has the winged helm. Winged helm is a very recognizable symbol of Hermes. Again, the messenger of the gods. He's quick. Mercury is the fastest planet. And specifically, Hermes has to do with thought and language and translation and stuff like that. It's communication, and it's some really cool associations. So it says, Hermes is considered the herald of the gods. He's also considered the protector of human heralds, travelers, thieves, merchants, and orators. He's able to move quickly and freely between the worlds of the mortal and the divine, aided by his winged sandals. Hermes plays the role of the psychopomp or soul guide, a conductor of souls into the afterlife. In myth, Hermes functioned as the emissary and messenger of the gods and was often presented as the son of Zeus and Maia. He is regarded as the divine trickster for whom Homer offers the most popular accounts in his hymn to Hermes. His attributes and symbols include the Herma, the rooster, the tortoise, the satchel, the winged sandals, the winged helmet, The palm tree, the goat, the number 4, several kinds of fish, incense. However, his main symbol is the caduceus, a winged staff intertwined with 2 snakes copulating and carvings of other gods. His attributes previously influenced early. Okay, we don't need that part. Let's see. And the words merchandise and merchant and commerce all come from Mercury. And then there's, in particular, where was this thing I wanted to read? He alone is able to go between Olympus and the realms of men. He's the only one who can do that. So it's a very special figure. But specifically the association with language and communication was the thing that I was interested in. Let me see if I could find that. He's also associated with shepherds. So here's one of the reasons why people sometimes think Mance and Rhaegar might be the same person, is because they have a lot of the same symbolism, and they both play a father figure role to Jon. But that's because of the way A Song of Ice and Fire archetypes work. A lot of people who play similar roles will have the similar symbolism. So we definitely can. And what have I said about Rhaegar 1,000 times, right? He's a Night's King figure. He steals a Stark maiden of the Blue Rose, Lyanna, right? And Mance, easy to see, parallels Bael the Bard, who did what? He's a king beyond the wall who stole a Stark maiden and left a Blue Rose in its place. So in the Blood of the Other podcast that I was talking about, I showed the triple parallel symbolism between Mance, Rhaegar, Bael the Bard, and actually Night's King. I should say a 4-way, because Night's King parallels all those people. And they all have very similar elements to it as far as that goes. So Lyanna's obviously a Night's Queen figure, attached to Rhaegar. Mance has Dala and Val there. Obviously not Val's, not married to Val, but she's a Night's Queen figure that's hanging around and basically starts taking care of his kid after Dala dies. And let's see here. What was I going to say? So yeah, there's so much symbolism. I like I said, I don't want to dive into it too fully. But Rhaegar and Mance do have a lot of parallel symbolism because they're both reflecting off of the same archetype, which is the Night's King archetype, which, like I said, King Beyond the Wall is part of that. So I'm not your friend, buddy. I'm not your buddy, pal. That's right. So Hermes, yes, thank you, Inglorious Pitch Puckington. Hermes invented the lyre, which is very much like a harp. So you have Rhaegar with a harp, and you have Mance Raydar with a lute. It's much the same idea. They're both doing a Hermes thing, having the lyre. So that's where that comes from, by the way. Rhaegar is probably also very fast, I would assume. So let's see here. Is there anything else I want to say about Hermes? You'll notice that Hermes and Herne the Hunter are both psychopomp figures. Even though they're different, they're not the same on most fronts. They are both psychopomp figures. So it kind of makes sense for George to wrap those two together, right? And draw upon them to influence, because there's never a one-to-one thing. So Mance is borrowing a little from Hermes. He's borrowing a little bit from Herne the Hunter, because he's very much a guardian of the woods, guardian of the free folk. So that's pretty cool. And he's also, like I said, foreshadowing for Jon, and Jon has a lot of Green Man symbolism as well. So, all right. And so now that I've given you a little bit of some of the symbolism that came along with Mance right in that opening scene. Oh, and so Hermes is also a trickster god, right? And you can see Mance, like he talks about the crow being a tricksy bird, and don't be tricksy with me. And then he literally hides and plays disguises. He goes and sneaks over into Winterfell. He did it twice. He did it once in the past, and he does it in dance under different, and he even gets glamored in a dance. So that's all very much trickster kind of stuff. So he's a good Hermes figure, very good Hermes figure. And he's also, when you think about the messenger of the gods, like, what's the message of Mance Raydar's character? Winter is coming, actually. That's the message. He's essentially telling the reader and people like Jon Snow that the others are a bigger threat than you understand, that they're coming. Because, of course, it turns out that Mance isn't attacking the wall to attack the wall for shits and giggles. He's doing it to try to hide on the other side of it. And we'll get to that quote. But basically, they're running from the others, and they're trying to get behind the wall to safety. So, guys, let me know. Has there been any super chats that I missed? I need to open my YouTube real quick so that I have both chat feeds up so I can see when people tag me. But let me know if I missed. I was reading and then talking a bunch. So if I missed any super chats, please let me know. And sorry, let me just pull up the stream here. By the way, I will just, here, let me share this one with you real quick. A friend of mine got a t-shirt in, and they look great, which I was a little bit nervous about because I wasn't able to, it's a Teespring thing. So you just upload the design and then people start buying them. But a friend of mine got this in, and as you can see, it looks very sharp. It came out great. So you can feel confident buying those LML t-shirts. I uploaded all the images in 300 DPI, and they did indeed come out great. So I just had that up and wanted to share that part real quick. But Mance Raydar, let's go over all the things that he's done. Oh, that's right. I was pulling at my YouTube. Sorry, guys. I have ADD. I get distracted easy. Where was I? Yes. I've got Let's Dance going in my, I've had Let's Dance in my head this whole stream. I said it at the beginning, and I was just like, bow, 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 ba-dum, bow, ba-dum. Yeah, see, what I need to do is like learn it on bass and make a whole bass loop and then sing to it. But I just didn't have time to get that ready. I was working on the outline instead. I hope that's okay. Hope that's okay. All right, there we go. So I got the pop-out chat that I need so that you guys, when you tag me in the YouTube chat, I will now see it, and that'll help me not miss any super chats. But I don't see anybody complaining. Looks like I'm on it. But I will also pop into the email, of course. See that. Check on the PayPal. I got a couple in yesterday too. Allard says, just joining in and logging off, but wanted to say I've been enjoying your videos very much, especially the Eve one. Any plans for more videos on that kind of topic? Yes, I do plan to slowly start incorporating more videos about world mythology and philosophy and stuff. But gradually, you know, I don't want to disturb the Ice and Fire content that I have. So I'll just mix those in as I can. Some of them will be stuff that's like the same topic as what's in my book, and other things I might just go off and cover any myth theme or anything like that about comparative mythology that I want to do. So absolutely got plans. And I appreciate all of you that have encouraged me in that direction and have told me that you've enjoyed the Why Man Makes Gods and the Eve Did Nothing Wrong videos. Means a lot. I was obviously, it's very nervous, you know, stepping out in a different direction. You don't know how it's going to be received, all that stuff. So really appreciate you guys that have supported me with that. Oh, Ramshackle Pictures, thank you very much. Jeffrey Turner, thank you very much. Mance seems to do a lot of theatrics, starting with his singing, going into his stories, and how and why he dresses the way he does. Do you think this is who he really is, or playing the bard? Oh, that's definitely who he is. And like I said, that Hermes symbolism kind of confirms it. This is his character. And I also believe his story about why he quit the watch. And I guess I did want to go back and talk about that at some point. But like thematically, George is really saying something here about joy. You have to remember that George is a hippie. He's an old deadhead. He likes wildling music and the charms of women and all that stuff. So, you know, how would George feel about living on the wall, being celibate, no joy, no music? He wouldn't like it at all. So I think there's a lot of George's heart here when he's telling us this story about Mance. You know, I left for a place where a red cloak wasn't a crime and a kiss wasn't a crime. Like, that's definitely George talking there. So I believe that's absolutely how Mance feels. But what we have to remember about Mance is that he's also not soft. He's no one's fool. And like when Orwell's eagle, mars up Jon's face, like Mance doesn't show any mercy. He's just like, you better not lie to me, or I'll give you to the Lord of Bones. So Mance is pretty tough. And also there's that scene where he whoops Jon's ass while he's glamored as the Lord of Bones. And we're going to read that too. So yeah, Mance is a complex character, but that sort of free-spirited part of him, like that's definitely real. And good comment from Genty M with the super chat. In some myths, Hermes is the father to Pan. Yes, that's right. Another horned god, another musical libertine fellow, I guess we should say. Do you think that could offer a hint to Mance's son having a role to bring the spring? Not Mel, I hope. Oh yeah, not that kind of role. So Mance's son, Aemon Battleborn, is an interesting fellow. There are some, because Mance is parallel to Rhaegar, there's a natural parallel between Jon and Aemon Battleborn. And you have to wonder about that. I was asking Quinn last night, I was like, do you think Jon's name is going to be Aegon in the books? I don't think it will be, because when Rhaegar and Lyanna were naming baby Jon, they wouldn't have known that Rhaegar's first son, also called Aegon, was dead. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how the timeline works. And it wouldn't make any sense to name two kids Aegon, right? So the more popular answer in the fandom has always been that Jon's real name is Aemon, because there's a line early in Game of Thrones where he's talking about how Robb and Jon pretend to be great heroes and battle around the castle. And Jon likes to say, I'm Aemon the Dragon Knight. Aemon the Dragon Knight, in terms of symbolism, is an ice dragon, right? He is a Targaryen, a dragon knight, but he becomes a Kingsguard. So he takes on all that White Walker symbolism of the Kingsguard. So just like Barristan Selmy, who is Dany's Queensguard, he has the ice-hard white armor, but it's got a dragon helm. And remember, I was pointing out that makes him an ice dragon figure. All those ice dragon figures, those are like the good other figures. This is the figure that fights against the others, but has that other symbolism, the ice associations. That's absolutely Jon Snow. It's also what Brienne is doing, by the way. So Aemon Battleborn might be a good parallel to Jon. I do think Jon's real name it should be Aemon. I think it should be Aemon. And that would all make sense to me because, again, these are all good other figures, the son of Night's King and Night's Queen figures. Monster fits into this too. And Monster and Mance's kid, of course, are tied together as well. So, yeah, good stuff. I don't know if, as far as a role with bringing the spring, I mean, I hope not, because the only way that babies can play that role is like, human sacrifice. So hopefully we won't have more of that. I do think the others might be coming for Mance and Gilly's son, Monster, at the wall. That is something that could be happening. And yeah, real katanas start at like 3K. Well, it depends on what you mean by real. It is a full tang, meaning the blade goes through the handle. But yeah, it's just like $150 Chinatown type deal. You can sharpen it up. It is made of good, decent steel that's at least good enough to sharpen. And you can get a Damascus steel one for less than that. But like a real quote unquote katana, yeah, that's a whole different. Oh, somebody put Aemon and Monster together. A Monster. Oh, that's good. He's a monster. Oh, that's good. Jon is a monster. Baby Monster is a monster. Very nice. I don't know how to change names. Just when I think I've unfollowed you on Twitter for the last time, you completely redeem yourself. Anyways, so yeah, functional katana. Functional meaning will chop somebody's head off. Yes. So in a sense, a real sword is anything that can hurt somebody, right? Yeah. Don't hurt people with swords, guys. It's display purposes only. So let's okay, so now that we've gone back, we've talked about the symbolism of that intro, the Hermes and the Her and the Hunter stuff. We've talked about Mance's character, about how he really did quit the watch because he just didn't find any joy there. And it was just too dreary and dull for him, essentially. Let's go ahead and go over all the different things that Mance has done in the plot, because he's definitely done a lot of stuff. Where did Mance learn to use a greatsword? Well, the thing is, we don't know how Mance came to the wall or where he was before that, do we? So he's kind of got still a blank spot in his backstory that could be filled in and tell us that answer. But as of right now, we don't know. I mean, you certainly learn to use a sword on the watch. They do sword training every day. So, Smitty, I know that swords aren't just for decoration. I am suggesting that people do not commit crimes with their swords. It is not often that there's a legitimate time and place to actually kill somebody with your sword. I mean, home invasion, yeah, I'm grabbing the sword, but I'm just saying, just don't want to condone violence, Smitty. I don't want to get in trouble, you know? Get in trouble with YouTube and also with the person who gets chopped. They don't want any of that. Kill Bill is a good movie, and that's it. So, all right. The actions of Mance Raydar. Let me pull this out in a separate tab so I can still see the chat on the side. Sorry, just dragging windows around here, guys. All right, so even before Game of Thrones, Mance is doing stuff. We read this quote is from Storm. However, this is telling you about what Mance was doing before. This is from a Jon chapter of Storm. It says, half the wildling host had lived all their lives without so much as a glimpse of the wall, Jon judged, and most of those spoke no word of the common tongue. It did not matter. Mance Raydar spoke the old tongue, even sang in it, fingering his lute and filling the night with strange, wild music. Mance had spent years assembling this vast, plodding host, talking to this clan mother and that Magnar, winning one village with sweet words and another with a song and a third with the edge of his sword, making peace between Harmadog's head and the Lord of Bones, between the Hornfoots and the Night Runners, between the Walrusmen of the Frozen Shore and the cannibal clans of the great ice rivers, hammering 100 different daggers into one great spear, aimed at the heart of the Seven Kingdoms. He has no crown nor scepter, nor robes of silk and velvet, but it was plain to Jon that Mance Raydar was a king in more than name. And I got some good wildling pictures here to share with you. Let me bring them back up. I closed them, sorry. There we go. Oh, infinite. Oh, that was the wrong button. Yeah, not StreamYard. Where's the bloody hell? Sorry, guys. 1 second. There we go. Oh, I see why. Okay. Mac stuff. There we go. So now I want to show you the wildlings. This is Pablo Pugioni, the artist. And so this one here, this has some Ice River clans. Specifically, you see the bone chariots there. Very cool. And then this one has 4 different wildlings. Let me blow this one up. And you can see one of these guys must be the Hornfoots on the left. Looks like, or on the third one here with the spear. He's got, as you can see, he's got bare feet. This one's riding a snow bear. So just a little wildling flavor for y'all. So Mance is out there consolidating all these crazy folks. That's kind of the point here. He's out there using every resource possible. His wiles, his blade, his music. And why is he doing it? He's doing it, again, to lead the free folk down past the wall to keep them safe. So a little bit of a Corn King thing there as well. Just like Jon sacrificing himself to let the wildlings through the wall, Mance symbolically burns, when Lord of Bones is burned, glamored as Mance. And that's, again, to feed the wildlings. So very cool. And also makes Mance just like just a great guy, like a good character. Like he sees a problem. He sees the others in the whites, and then he does something about it. He tries to literally organize and save everybody. And I just think that's pretty badass, right? Sure it is. So I love Mance, in case you haven't picked that up. I think he's awesome. So He's gathering those wildlings and the Frostfangs. Of course, he's opening giants' graves, trying to find the Horn of Winter, supposedly. And like I said, he's seeing signs of the Whites and the wildlings. So this next quote is from the Fist of the First Men, when Mance is interrogating Jon about what he was doing there at the Fist. And so Jon says, the old bear commanded. This place was high and strong, and he made it stronger. He dug pits and planted stakes, laid up food and water. He was ready for me, finished Mance Raydar. Aye, he was. Had I been fool enough to storm this hill, I might have lost 5 men for every crow I slew and still counted myself lucky. His mouth grew hard. But when the dead walk, walls and stakes and swords mean nothing. You cannot fight the dead, Jon Snow. No man knows that half so well as me. He gazed up at the darkening sky and said, the crows may have helped us more than they know. I'd wondered why we suffered no attacks, but there's still 100 leagues to go and the cold is rising. Varamir, send your wolves sniffing after the Whites. I won't have them taking us unawares. My Lord of Bones, double all the patrols and make certain every man has torch and flint. Stir, Jarl, you ride at first light. So you can see that Mance knows how to prepare for the wildlings, right? He's got every single person has a torch. It would have been nice if every single Night's Watchman had a torch, right? They didn't even have that. He knows that the dire wolves, or the wolves in general, I guess, can pick up the smell of the Whites. And so he uses his wolves as outriders to detect that. That's smart too. The Night's Watch should have been doing that. And so you can see that Mance has, no one knows half so well as him that you can't fight the dead. So that tells you he has a lot of experience with fighting the dead. And he's, been chased by he's like, oh, I wondered why we suffered no attacks. So he's used to being attacked and harassed by all the wildlings and the Whites, or by the Whites and the others rather. And that just tells you like, this is what's going on. So again, the messenger function of Mance to Jon and to us and the reader, he's telling us just how bad it is. And he is sort of helping to pump up that threat of the others before they actually attack. Another good point, Alaris. If Mance wasn't just Mance, I think when Melisandre performed magic on him, she'd sense the presence of someone or something else. Yeah, she would figure that out. True. And another reason why Mance isn't anybody but Mance is because he's such a good character on his own. And he doesn't need that. Like, he doesn't need more. It would just be too much paint on the easel, if you will. This is a rich character already. And we don't, like I said, we don't even know what he was doing before the wall. So there's more mysteries yet to come. He was Arthur Dayne before the wall. God bless you. All heresy is welcome here, like I always say. Hey, Ben. Thanks, buddy. Go Dubs. Yeah, I'm wearing my Dubs stuff because first preseason game was yesterday. Steph Curry back on the court. It's my man, Steph Curry. I love basketball is the only pure sport left, man. Football's dead to me. Dead to me. Especially fantasy football. Okay, so Mance is doing lots of stuff. Before the story even starts, he is gathering the wildlings together, winning them over, consolidating, right? So the Game of Thrones starts, and then Mance is mentioned in that very first Godswood scene as a threat to be feared alongside the others. And remember, I was saying Mance Raydar, the King Beyond the Wall archetype, has a lot of overlap with Night's King, right? So listen to these quotes. Beyond the wall, the thought made Catelyn shudder. And this is Ned talking about maybe going beyond the wall. Ned saw the dread on her face. Mance Raydar is nothing for us to fear. There are darker things beyond the wall. She glanced behind her at the heart tree. Pale bark and red eyes, watching, listening, thinking its long, slow thoughts. So they're talking about Mance Raydar, and then Kat's like, but what about the others, basically? That's what she's alluding to. So then again later, in the Clash of Kings, Jon is talking to Gilly, and they're talking about the others. And Jon says, we do not ride for the wall. We ride north after Mance Raydar and these others, these white shadows and their whites. We seek them, Gilly. Your babe would not be safe with us. So obviously Mance Raydar doesn't lead the others, but the wording of the sentence actually phrases it like he does. We ride north after Mance Raydar and these others. And Jon is saying, we're looking out for both of those things separately. But there's a lot of language that is like this, that gets us to think about Mance Raydar as a leader of the others. And of course, going back to the Herne the Hunter thing, Herne the Hunter is a ghost version of Sir Nunos. He's a dead version. He leads the wild hunt, but it's like a dead version of the wild hunt with the ghost animals and stuff. And as far as the white stag idea, the white stag guards the other world. It's like an emissary from the other world. So Mance Raydar, the idea of him, of a Night's King figure having that white stag symbolism, it kind of makes sense. All right, so, here's another point Ginty makes. That's a cool one. Hermes was also a guide to mankind's development, along with Hestia after Prometheus gave the gods fire to man. Mance definitely plays a role, a guide role in bringing the free folk together. That's very true. Very true. Another thematic correlation. Very nice. So, let's see here. Deeds of Mance Raydar. Okay, so like I said, Kat mentions him right at the beginning, so he's held up as this specter of fear right from the beginning of A Game of Thrones. Like we said, in A Game of Thrones, Mance comes to Winterfell and checks out the whole thing with Robert and all that stuff. So that's cool. And of course, he meets Dalla on the way back home. So very cool. And then in Clash of Kings, the only thing he really does, the Night's Watch hears about the wildlings gathering. They hear about the deserted villages. And so Jorah Mormont makes a great ranging to the Fist of the First Men. So Mance is kind of the catalyst for that great ranging from Clash of Kings. Let's put some effects on this baby. Let's see what we got here. Oh, cool. We got the organ chiming. It's kind of loud. That was the wah-wah and the chimey. Hopefully that didn't kill anyone's ears. I never know how loud this is picking up, but there you go. Thank you, William. Waiting for the screams of rage come through. Okay, so Storm of Swords. Lots of things start happening. Mance meets Jon. We just read that scene. It tells him the story of him sneaking into Winterfell. Then at the Fist, he figures out that Jon is lying about the Night's Watch's numbers. Like I said, Mance is nobody's fool. And so he sends Jon with Styr, the Magnarth, then to climb the wall. Then Mance attacks the wall. I've got a nice picture of Mance attacking the wall here. I've got a few of those. This is by Robert Simon. The gate at the wall. You can see the mammoths trying to pull it off. That's a scene right from the book. That's very cool. This is another one by the same artist. See the wildling lines there. I'll make this a little bigger. That's really nice art. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, let me take the super chat off screen. Very cool. Very cool. Like I said, there's the other one. And a third. And there's also that overhead shot. Did I grab that one? I don't know if I did. Oh, yes. Here we go. Yep. This one is by Greg Rutkowski. And this is pretty cool. Again, you can see all the forces there, the arrows coming down off the top of the wall. Gets the ambiance going. I'll just leave that up for a second. So yeah, Mance is busy. He attacks the wall. Then, of course, he is repelled by Jon in the Night's Watch. And then comes a really gripping scene where Jon is sent to kill Mance Raydar. And I want to read this one. Pulling up the Kindle. By the way, for those of you guys who like to listen via podcast, I am getting better at getting this stuff on the podcast feed. I got a couple things on there on Friday, and I will be putting these character studies up there too. I'm even going to go back for the Winds of Winter previews and get those on the feed as well. So that is coming. I don't have any vitamin water today, but I do have my dragon mug. There were no true hills here, but Mance Raydar's white fur tent had been raised on a spot of high stony ground right on the edge of the trees. The king beyond the wall was waiting outside, his ragged red and black cloak blowing in the wind. Harma Dogshead was with him, Jon saw, back from her raids and feints along the wall, and Vaemir Sixskins as well, attended by his shadow cats and his 2 lean gray wolves. When he saw who the watch had sent, Harma turned her head and spat, and one of Vaemir's wolves bared its teeth and growled. You must be very brave or very stupid, Jon Snow, Mance Raydar said, to come back to us wearing a black cloak. What else would a man of the Night's Watch wear? Kill him, urged Harma. Send his body back up in that cage of theirs and tell him to send us someone else. I'll keep his head for my standard. A turncloak's worse than a dog. I warned her he was false. Varamir's tone was mild, but his shadow cat was staring at Jon hungrily through slitted gray eyes. I never did like the smell of him. Pull in your claws, beastling. Tormund Giantsbane swung down off his horse. The lad's here to hear. You lay a paw on him, might be able to take me that shadow-skin cloak I've been wanting. Tormund Crow-lover, Harma sneered. You are a great sack of wind, old man. The skin changer was gray-faced, round-shouldered, and bald, a mouse of a man with a wolfling's eyes. Once a horse is broken to the saddle, any man can mount him, he said in a soft voice. Once a beast's been joined to a man, any skin changer can slip inside and ride him. Orwell was withering inside his feathers, so I took the eagle for my own. But the joining works both ways, warg. Orwell lives inside me now, whispering how much he hates you. And I can soar above the wall and see with eagle's eyes. So we know, said Mance. We know how few you were when you stopped the turtle. We know how many came from Eastwatch. We know how your supplies have dwindled. Pitch, oil, arrows, spears. Even your stair is gone, and that cage can only lift so many. We know. And we know you know we know. He opened, and now, we know. And now you know we know. He opened the flap of the tent. Come inside. The rest of you wait here. What, even me? Said Tormund. Particularly you. Always. It was warm within. A small fire burned beneath the smoke hole, and a brazier smoldered near the pile of furs where Dalla lay, pale and sweating. Her sister was holding her hand. Val, Jon remembered. I was sorry when Jarl fell. That last part was Jon's speech. I was sorry when Jarl fell, he told her. Val looked at him with pale gray eyes. He always climbed too fast. She was as fair as he'd remembered, slender, full-breasted, graceful even at rest, with high, sharp cheekbones and a thick braid of honey-colored hair that fell to her waist. Dalla's time is near, Mance explained. She and Val will stay. They know what I mean to say. Jon kept his face as still as ice. Foul enough to slay a man in his own tent under truce. Must I murder him in front of his wife as their child is being born? He closed the fingers of his sword hand. Mance was not wearing armor, but his own sword was sheathed on his left hip. And there were other weapons in the tent, daggers and dirks, a bow and a quiver of arrows, a bronze-headed spear lying beside the big black horn. Jon sucked in his breath. A war horn. A bloody great war horn. Yes, Mance said, the horn of winter, the Jorman once blew to wake giants from the earth. The horn was huge, 8 feet along the curve, and so wide at the mouth that he could have put his arm inside up to the elbow. If this came from an aurochs, it was the biggest that ever lived. At first he thought the bands around it were bronze. When he moved closer, he realized they were gold. Old gold, more brown than yellow, and graven with runes. Ygritte said you never found the horn. Did you think only crows could lie? I liked you well enough for a bastard, but I never trusted you. A man needs to earn my trust. Jon faced him. If you've had the horn of Jorman all along, then why haven't you used it? Why bother building turtles and sending Thens to kill us in our beds? If this horn is all the songs say, then why not just sound it and be done? It was Dalla who answered him. Dalla, great with child, lying on her pile of furs beside the brazier. We free folk know things you kneelers have forgotten. Sometimes the short road is not the safest, Jon Snow. The Horned Lord once said that sorcery is a sword without a hilt. There is no safe way to grasp it. And of course, that's an iconic quote. Interesting that it comes from Dalla. Mance ran a hand along the curve of the great horn. No man goes hunting with only one arrow in his quiver, he said. I had hoped that Styr and Jarl would take your brothers unawares and open the gate for us. I drew your garrison away with feints and raids and secondary attacks. Bow and Mars swallowed that lore as I knew he would, but your band of cripples and orphans proved to be more stubborn than anticipated. Don't think you've stopped us, though. The truth is, you are too few, and we are too many. I could continue the attack here and still send 10,000 men to cross the Bay of Seals on rafts and take Eastwatch from the rear. I could storm the Shadow Tower, too. I know the approaches as well as any man alive. I could send men and mammoths to dig out the gates at the castles you've abandoned, all of them at once. Why don't you, then? Jon could have drawn Longclaw then, but he wanted to hear what the wildling had to say. Blood, said Mance Raydar. I'd win in the end, yes, but you'd bleed me, and my people have bled enough. Your losses haven't been that heavy. Not at your hands. Mance studied Jon's face. You saw the Fist of the First Men. You know what happened there. You know what we're facing. The others. They grow stronger as the days grow shorter and the nights colder. First they kill you, then they send your dead against you. The giants have not been able to stand against them, nor the Thenns, the Ice River clans, the Hornfoots. Nor you, nor me. There was anger in that admission, and bitterness too deep for words. Raymond Redbeard, Bale the Bard, Gandalin Gorn, the Horned Lord, they all came south to conquer, but I've come with my tail between my legs to hide behind your wall. He touched the horn again. If I sound the horn of winter, the wall will fall. Or so the songs would have me believe. There are those among my people who want nothing more. But once the wall is fallen, Dallas said, what will stop the others? Mance gave her a fond smile. It's a wise woman I've found, a true queen. He turned back to Jon. Go back and tell them to open their gate and let us pass. If they do, I will give them the horn, and the wall will stand until the end of days. Open that gate and let them pass. Easy to say, but what must follow? Giants camping in the ruins of Winterfell? Cannibals in the Wolfswood? Chariots sweeping across the Barrowlands? Free folk stealing the daughters of shipwrights and silversmiths from White Harbor? And fishwives off the stony shore? Are you a true king? Jon asked suddenly. I've never had a crown on my head or sat my arse on a bloody throne, if that's what you're asking, Mance replied. My birth is as low as a man's can get. No septons ever smeared my head with oils. I don't own any castles, and my queen wears furs and amber, not silk and sapphires. I am my own champion, my own fool, my own harpist. You don't become king beyond the wall because your father was. The free folk won't follow a name, and they don't care which brother was born first. They follow fighters. When I left the Shadow Tower, there were 5 men making noises about how they might be the stuff of kings. Tormund was one, Magnar another. The other 3 I slew, when they made it plain they'd sooner fight than follow. You can kill your enemies, Jon said bluntly, but can you rule your friends? If we let you people pass, are you strong enough to make them keep the king's peace and obey the laws? Whose laws? The laws of Winterfell and King's Landing? Mance laughed. When we want laws, we'll make our own. You can keep your king's justice too and your king's taxes. I'm offering you the horn, not our freedom. We will not kneel to you. What if we refuse the offer? Jon had no doubt that they would. The old bear might at least have listened, though he would have balked at the notion of letting 30 or 40,000 wildlings loose on the 7 kingdoms. But Alistair Thorne and Janos Slynt would dismiss the notion out of hand. If you refuse, Mance Raydar said, Tormund Giantsbane will sound the horn of winter 3 days hence at dawn. All right, so that is when the horn sounds, and Mance rides in, and or not Mance, Stannis, and essentially there's a big battle, and they run outside, and Mance gets captured. Dalla dies in childbirth. You guys know how the rest of that goes. So. See, a couple things from that scene. Let me go back here. I already hit on this a little bit. And let me check back on our chat here. Thanks, everyone watching. I see almost 400. You guys are awesome. Hope you're having fun. So, let me find the right picture for this. Let's go back to the Mance. That's what I think of this picture as, the Mance. So you can see Mance is, like I said, coming with his tail between his legs. He is gathering the wildlings to hide from the others. And honestly, this is like real leadership. Like I said, someone who sees a problem and acts in a way to take care of people and keep people safe. Even those other leaders that he killed, he did that so that he could consolidate the wildlings and move them south of the wall. So pretty good guy, that Mance Raydar. and pretty perceptive as well. And it's pretty high tension conversation there between him and Jon. And you can see that Jon is the seeds of Jon's idea in A Dance with Dragons is starting here. Jon is beginning to comprehend the idea of the wildlings south of the wall, letting them through. He's beginning to see that, like, oh, yes, the others send their dead against you. And you can see in A Dance with Dragons, when he's pitching the idea to Bowen Marsh and these other skeptical Night's Watch people, he makes the point. He's like, look, what do you think is going to happen if we leave them north of the wall when the others come? It's going to be 40,000 more whites. And instead, we could bring them through and have them help us man the castles, which is a great idea. So you can see the beginnings of that line of thought here when Jon leans in. He was just thinking about killing Mance. He wants to hear what he has to say, and all of a sudden he's questioning him. Are you a king? Can you lead your people? What will happen? So a lot of wheels turning in Jon's head right here. Very interesting scene. Yes, the other leaders that he killed, of course. The others I killed. So again, Mance Raydar, skipping ahead a little bit to A Dance with Dragons. One of the biggest questions for the next book is Mance really in the crow cage as the pink letter says? I'm not going to get into who wrote the pink letter. But assuming the pink letter comes from Winterfell, comes from Ramsay, it claims that Mance is hanging in the crow cage. And of course, when he was at Winterfell, he did help Theon escape. And a lot of those spearwives were getting captured or killed as they were escaping. So it's very possible that that plot was unraveled and Mance was caught. However, if he didn't get caught, he's tremendously useful because he knows more about the others and the whites than almost anybody. So I really think that Mance is a valuable person to help rally the North, to help rally people against the others. He obviously has a very deep, meaningful relationship with Jon Snow that I don't feel like is done yet. I feel like Jon and Mance have to talk again. And I feel like Mance's role just isn't finished in the story. So I'm a big fan of the idea that Mance is not done, and that he's got some more things that are going to be happening. And specifically, he's being set up with all this knowledge and experience of the others, and he's one of the only people that can lead the wildlings. So he's a valuable piece on the chessboard, and I wouldn't expect him to just disappear. But let me finish going through the deeds of Mance. We were pretty much through the deeds for Storm. I want to get up to the Dance with Dragons stuff. So Mance is captured by Stannis. He's kept in prison. Val lobbies for Mance to be able to see his son once before he's executed, but Stannis says no because Stannis is a dick. Then in the Feast for Crows, the only thing that really happens concerning him is that Jon does the baby swap. He sends Mance's son with Gilly because he's worried that Mel will try to sacrifice him. And Monster stays at the wall posing as Mance's son. You guys know about that. And then in A Dance with Dragons, we have the Rattleshirt execution. I was tempted to read the scene, but we've already been going for a while. And also, I've broken it down in such detail in the Green Zombie series and elsewhere. So I'll just summarize a little bit. But if you guys remember, it's Rattleshirt glamored as Mance Raydar. He's put in a wooden cage, and it specifically said that weirwood branches are used to make the cage. Then it is set on fire right above the Horn of Winter, which I also want to talk about. And the symbolism here is really awesome. So if you guys have done any Weirwood Compendium podcast series, you know that the burning weirwood is a very important symbol. Its leaves are the color of blood and flame. It's drawing on the symbolism of the burning bush. It's the fire of the gods. It's a burning tree that never goes out, kind of like the glass candles, a flame that burns without being consumed. There's all that symbolism. And not only that, everything about Azor Ahai going into the weirwood has all that symbolism of a conflagration, just like we saw at the alchemical wedding and a bunch of other scenes with the burning trees. So what we have here is a horned lord figure. Again, Mance represents Azor Ahai becoming Night's King, pretty much. So we have a horned lord figure going into a weirwood and literally being burned at the wall. So that is the transformation of Azor Ahai going into the Weirwood net. And then, of course, Lord of Bones is a symbol of an other. He's got bone white armor, like I was talking about in the Jon Snow video. Hopefully you guys have watched the Lord Snow video and enjoyed that. I see tons of awesome comments on the video, so I think you guys are liking that one. Like I was saying, Rattleshirt Lord of Bones, he is a symbol of an other. And I guess I'll just put me back on since we're not talking about that anymore. And so what Mance does is, or what we see is we see Mance burn in the Weirwood cage, and then the real Mance turns into the Lord of Bones. So that is Azor Ahai, fire transformation into the Weirwood tree, and then he becomes an other. So that's pretty much your Azor Ahai into the Night's King symbolism right there. Pretty cool stuff. But he's now here's the thing, okay? So Melisandre is obviously a fire witch. However, it's been well established that she does play Night's Queen roles. So you just have to sort of flip the fire to ice to understand the symbolism. But for example, Stannis and Melisandre, they make the shadow babies, right? And that's parallel to Night's King and Queen making the others. Stannis gives his soul and his life fires to Melisandre, and she makes shadow children, just as Night's Queen took the seed and soul of Night's King and made the white shadow children. So Melisandre, a Night's Queen figure at times, is controlling the sorcelled Mance, right? So Mance has essentially been magically taken in under the spell of a Night's Queen figure when he did this whole burning transformation and turning into another. So it's very Night's Queen and King here as far as the symbolism goes. And then what does he do? He goes to Winterfell. And also the fact that he leads a giant wildling host against the wall, that's obviously more Night's King other symbolism. Again, in the Lord Snow video, I showed you how the wildlings are loaded down with other symbolism. Of course, that makes sense because they live north of the wall just like the others. So when the wildlings attack the wall or cross the wall, George is symbolically showing us about the others attacking or crossing the wall. So Mance is a Night's King figure who then goes to Winterfell. And that's kind of interesting. It definitely makes you think of the whole Night King as a Stark idea, and it makes you think of the idea of Night's King leading the others in an attack against Winterfell. And that's what Jon was going to do, of course, who is another potential Azor Ahai to Night's King figure. He was going to lead the wildling host against the Lord of Winterfell, against the Boltons who hold it then. And if the others steal Jon's body, they're going to use it to cross the wall and invade Westeros. So you see this pattern happening over and over again. Stannis becomes a corpse as he gives his seed and soul to Night's Queen, and to Melisandre. And that is essentially what I think happened to Night's King as well. So Night's King starts off as Azor Ahai, a fiery dragon person, but he gives that fiery seed and soul to the corpse queen, to Night's Queen. And that creates the others. So just as Stannis turns corpse-like, creating shadow children, I suspect that Night's King Azor Ahai was being transformed when he gave his life fires to Night's Queen to make the others. Now, the one thing I will point out about quote-unquote corpse queen is that she's not necessarily the corpse. She could be the queen of corpses. Because if she's a Night's Queen figure, she is the queen of corpses, literally. So I don't think Night's Queen was a corpse. I think she was an ice witch, like Melisandre, but just cold. And that is why she was able to make magical shadow children that were the others. I think that's all part of it. So that one is in Moons of Ice and Fire podcast series, if you want to check that out. So it starts off right at the beginning. The first Moons of Ice and Fire podcast episode is all about Melisandre and Stannis and Night's Queen and King and how all those parallels work. So check that one out. Yes. So, okay. So Mance Raydar, he's doing Night's King stuff. He's invading Westeros. He's doing the Azor Ahai transforming into another thing. So let's think about how this could parallel Jon. Mance Raydar is a crow that went over to the wildlings. Jon Snow is a crow that went over to the wildlings. Jon Snow is a kind of king. He's called Lord Snow. And after Mance is supposedly burned at the wall, Jon takes over command of the wildlings along with Tormund. So he's got that king of the wildling symbolism, and he's accused of being that by the Night's Watch brothers. So, like I said, Mance goes over, joins the wildlings, becomes otherized with the white tent and all that stuff, and then leads the wildlings against the wall. Well, what does Jon do? Jon helps lead the attack too, because he goes over to the wildlings and climbs the wall just like Mance to lead the attack. And then later in A Dance with Dragons, Jon lets the wildlings through the wall, which is exactly what Mance was trying to do. So I pointed out that when Jon goes over to the wildlings, there's that symbolism of the sheepskin cloak, right? Sheep are white. Craster is heavily associated with sheep. He gives sheep to the others in place of his sons, which tells you that the sheep represents a Craster baby, an other baby. So when Jon puts on that sheepskin cloak, which is what he does when he's accepted into the wildling host, who symbolize the others, that's all very copacetic. Jon is becoming an other baby. He's becoming an other, and he's got that sheep symbolism of Craster's children who are given to the others, which is all about Jon being, quote unquote, the prince that was promised to the others. That sort of old idea that there's a pact, and that the Starks owe the others a baby, and that Jon's got to honor that pact. And I'm going to make a video. I'm working on that script right now, actually. So the sheepskin, Jon gets it from Mance. So Mance is like a night king here. He's like the priest of the others, or the great other. And Jon goes inside of his white snow tent, and then Mance gives him a white cloak to help him transform into another. So it just shows you like the parallels between Mance and Jon, the similarities. They're both leading the armies against the wall. So this is just more evidence that Jon will be whited and will be a leader of the others, at least for a short time, and that the others will use him to lead their invasion of Westeros. It's been so heavily foreshadowed at this point. The more I think about it, the more certain I become. So again, I hope you guys really like the Lord Snow video. It's one of the first new theories I put out in a while. A lot of the videos I put out lately have been sort of summing up and just advancing older theories. But this idea of the others stealing Jon's body, I kind of thought of when me and Quinn were talking about Jon in our Jon the Wolfman Winds of Winter predictions video. And then from there, I've been fleshing it out. So yeah, exciting new theory. Lord Snow, hope you guys like it. And pop over to PayPal here. Make sure I'm up on that. Looks like I am. Let me get the ones that came in earlier. I'll honor them as well. You can send me a PayPal anytime you want to cheer me up, because that's what happens. I look down, I get a little notification, and it's like, oh, somebody has sent you a little thank you note. And it's always awesome. Greg Namuth sent one in. It says, you're awesome. Thanks, Greg. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm just minding. Oh, that was, that was 20 hours ago. So that was yesterday. I was minding my own business, getting ready. Maybe I'm stressing out. Maybe the birds are screaming at me, and I open up my phone, and my buddy Greg sent me $10 to tell me that I'm awesome and he's enjoying my video. So thanks, man. That really means a lot. It does. Yeah. There's one from Chris. Yeah, that was yesterday too. And from Allard, which I got as well. Oh, and Chris says, currently rewatching your others take Jon's body video, and I'm noticing an uptick in the interjected humor. Like a straightforwardly a word. Yeah, I'm doing my best, guys. And shoehorning the crow voice. After watching more of your live vids, it almost feels like you're just talking rather than reading off of a script. Question, how dark do you think the Starks... Okay, so let me stop there. Thank you. I was just actually re-listening to an older podcast of mine, the Blood of the Other Baleful Bard podcast, because a lot of that material I'm going to work with in the Prince That Was Promised to the Others video that I'm working on. So I re-listened to this old podcast of mine, 2.5 hours, totally in the weeds. I talk real slow. and like just like indulge every little side path. And it's kind of funny listening back. You guys who are artists know when you look at your old art, like half of it is cringe. You're like, ooh. And half of it is like, oh, it actually wasn't bad. That wasn't bad. Young me did all right there. So it's kind of fun. But the older podcasts are very in the weeds. I do enjoy, shortening things up. I do feel like I've gotten a lot better through all the practice as far as reading off a script and sounding like I'm, being conversational. I've also come to get better at writing my scripts in a more conversational fashion. So those of you who are doing public speaking or have your own YouTube and podcasts and stuff, if you hate the sound of your own voice at first, it's okay. Just keep going, keep practicing. You'll naturally improve. You hear yourself and you refine it. So thanks for the encouragement. And also, want to pass it back over to you. Keep at it. You'll notice your own improvement and start to feel good about it, feel more confident. And that's definitely happened for me. So thanks for noticing. Question, how dark do you think the Starks were before they were the kings of winter? The tales about Brandon the Bloody the Bloody Blade and other such less heroic Starks make me think the Starks of old could have been more like the Boltons than we'd like. Yeah, absolutely. It also makes me think that they could have done unsavory sacrifices to Craster. Sure. Absolutely, man. Yeah, all that's possible. The whole point of something I'm going to talk about in the new video is that the symbolism between the Targaryens and the dragons on one side and the Starks and the others is very thought-provoking, right? So it's called A Song of Ice and Fire. We've got these two families, the Starks and the Targaryens, obviously the most important families. The Targaryens are the blood of the dragon. They come from Valyria. They bond with the dragons. They use the dragons to conquer empires. They literally have reptilian blood in their human bodies, as we know from the lizard babies that they pop out sometimes. Then we have the Starks, and the Starks are up north, so they seem ice affiliated. The Song of Ice and Fire, doing good so far. But the Starks, are they the blood of the other? Do they train the others and bond with them and then use the others to conquer empires? Well, maybe. At first, it doesn't appear so, right? At first, it doesn't appear that this is a parallel relationship. The Starks are at war with the others, whereas the Targaryens they're best buddies with their dragons. But there are all these hints that there are dark secrets in the Starks' past, right from the outset. I'm fond of pointing out that Game of Thrones starts with the Waymar prologue, and it ends with essentially the others killing Sir Waymar, right, with a sword made of ice. Many of them. They all come in and stab him. It was cold butchery, right? The very next chapter starts with Ned Stark beheading Will's partner, Garrett, with a sword not made of ice, but cold ice. So we have this parallel created between the others and the Starks right from the beginning. We've got Will being killed by an ice sword of the others, and then Garrett, his buddy, gets killed by the sword ice of Lord Stark. So right from the jump, it's there. And as it goes on, we see that, in fact, Night's King might have been a Stark. And that's the big one. That tells you, this is dark. But yes, of course, putting the magic aside, the Starks are no better or worse than any other First Man house. All of those First Man houses, they're just like humans in our past. They were warring. Some of them are nice. Some of them were barbarous. Some of them were like Ramsay Bolton. Some of them were crazy. Some of them were psychotic warg kings, no doubt. Some of them were good kings. Obviously, the Starks have done well enough ruling to hold on to that rule for so long, and they are respected. But we shouldn't think about them as saints or anything by any means. No, of course not. Of course not. And all the First Men, warred and hunted the children of the forest, and which is, essentially a genocide. So there's that. But as far as the magical stuff, yes, obviously the Starks have a tie to the others. And like I said in the Blood of the Other podcast, it is possible that the Starks literally descend from somebody who was part other or Night's Queen or something like that. So let's see here. Yes. So let's find this scene where Mance whoops Jon's ass in the yard, because I just love that scene. Oh, gosh. I don't have it ready. Let's see how quickly I can find it. Here we go. I got it. That wasn't too bad. This is a really fun scene because Jon's a good swordsman. There's no doubt. He beats Iron Emmett when he gets all raged out that one time. So Jon's walking around at Castle Black after the wildlings have come through the wall, and he says, by that time Jace had found his feet, so Jon put him down again. I hate it when dead men get up. You'll feel the same someday when you meet a white, because he knocked down one of his comrades. Stepping back, he lowered his sword. The big crow can peck the little crows, growled a voice behind him, but has he belly enough to fight a man? Rattleshirt was leaning against the wall. A coarse stubble covered his sunken cheeks, and thin brown hair was blowing across his little yellow eyes. You flatter yourself, Jon said. Aye, but I'd flatten you. Stannis burned the wrong man. That's a funny line. He literally did. No, the wildling grinned at him through a mouth of brown and broken teeth. So that's cool. Mance Raydar gets the joke here. He knows that Stannis burned the wrong man. So that's funny. Jon says this ironic thing, and Mance cracks a grin. He says, he burned the man he had to burn for all the world to see. We all do what we have to do, Snow, even kings. So definitely a lot of between the lines stuff there. Then Jon says, Emmett, find some armor for him. I want him in steel, not old bones. Once clad in mail and plate, the Lord of Bones seemed to stand a little straighter. That's because the glamour is partially tied to the bones. So without the bones, the costume doesn't work as well, and he looks taller, like real Mance Raydar. It said he seemed taller too, his shoulders thicker and more powerful than Jon would have thought. It's the armor, not the man, he told himself. Even Sam could appear almost formidable, clad head to heel in Donald Noy's steel. The wildling waved away the shield Horse offered him. Instead, he asked for a two-handed sword. There's a sweet sound, he said, slashing at the air. Flap closer, Snow. I mean to make your feathers fly. Jon rushed him hard. Rattleshirt took a step backwards and met the charge with a two-handed slash. If Jon had not interposed his shield, it might have staved his breastplate in and broken half his ribs. The force of the blow staggered him for a moment and sent a solid jolt up his arm. He hits harder than I would have thought. His quickness was another unpleasant surprise. They circled round each other, trading blow for blow. The Lord of Bones gave as good as he was getting. By rights, the two-handed greatsword should have been a deal more cumbersome than Jon's longsword, but the wildling wielded it with blinding speed. Iron Emmett's fledglings cheered their Lord Commander at the start, but the relentless speed of Rattleshirt's attack soon beat them down to silence. He cannot keep this up for long, Jon told himself as he stopped another blow. The impact made him grunt. Even dulled, the greatsword cracked his pinewood shield and bent the iron rim. He will tire soon. He must. Jon slashed at the wildling's face, and Rattleshirt pulled back his head. He hacked down at Rattleshirt's calf, only to have him deftly leap the blade. The greatsword crashed down onto Jon's shoulder, hard enough to ding his pauldron and numb the arm beneath. Jon backed away. The Lord of Bones came after, chortling. He has no shield, Jon reminded himself, and that monster sword's too cumbersome for parries. I should be landing 2 blows for every one of his. Somehow he wasn't, though, and the blows he did land were having no effect. The wildling always seemed to be moving away or sliding sideways, so Jon's longsword glanced off a shoulder or an arm. Before long, he found himself giving more ground, trying to avoid the others' crashing cuts, and failing half the time. His shield had been reduced to kindling. He shook it off his arm. Sweat was running down his face and stinging his eyes beneath his helm. He is too strong and too quick, he realized. And with that greatsword, he has weight and reach on me. It would have been a different fight if Jon had been armed with Longclaw, but his chance came on Rattleshirt's next backswing. Jon threw himself forward, bowling into the other man, and they went down together, legs entangled. Steel slammed on steel. Both men lost their swords as they rolled on the hard ground. The wildling drove a knee between Jon's legs. Jon lashed out with a mailed fist. Somehow Rattleshirt ended up on top with Jon's head in his hands. He smashed it against the ground, then wrenched his visor open. If I had me a dagger, you'd be less than I by now, he snarled, before Horse and Iron Emmett dragged him off the Lord Commander's chest. "Let go of me, you bloody crows," he roared. Jon struggled to one knee. His head was ringing, and his mouth was full of blood. He spat it out and said, "Well fought." "You flatter yourself, Crow. I never broke a sweat." "Next time you will," said Jon. Dolorous Ed helped him to his feet and unbuckled his helm. It had acquired several deep dents that had not been there when he donned it. "Release him." Jon tossed the helm to Hop Robin, who dropped it. "My lord," said Iron Emmett, "he threatened your life. We all heard. He said that if he had a dagger—" "He does have a dagger. Right there on his belt." "There is always someone quicker and stronger," Sir Roderick had once told Jon and Robb. "He's the man you'll want to face in the yard before you need to face his like upon a battlefield." So there you go. Mance whooped Jon's ass. I don't know what to say about that. He had a bigger, heavier sword. And, so the illusion does play to Mance's advantage a little bit. Jon underestimates him. If Jon had been fighting Mance, he would have approached him differently. Also, the sort of the calculation about how big and all that, how quick he was, Jon was caught off guard. But even once they're in the fight and Jon realizes that he's facing a tough foe, he can't do anything about it. He can't stop him. He can't turn aside his blows. Mance doesn't have magic making his sword lighter. He's just really strong and knows how to wield a greatsword. He's still not Arthur Dayne, but he does wield the greatsword well. And so there you go. Also, by the way, Arthur Dayne, I don't think the physical description fits. Like Mance has brown eyes and brown hair going to gray. Arthur Dayne's got to have some of that Valerian, right? He's got to either have black or white hair or some purple eyes or something. So not Arthur Dayne, but does wield the greatsword well, does kick Jon's ass here quite thoroughly. And Mance's feelings for Jon are probably pretty complex. He still does like Jon, but he's got reason to have some anger as well. So he took out some of that anger here on Jon. And, on one sense, he's sort of playing the part of the cantankerous Lord of Bones, taunting and all that stuff. But one wonders if Mance is feeling that a little bit too. So I'll just say that. Pretty good scene. And also just serves to show you that Mance is a top-notch fighter because Jon is pretty good. He's better swordsman than Robb. He kicks everyone's ass in the yard. Jon is definitely, at least like an 8 out of 10 on that scale. But Mance is a badass. He's not Arthur Dayne, but he's a badass. So there you go. And we've been going an hour and 45 minutes already. Well, we have kind of covered most of it. So let's go back to I want to talk about the horn and Mance's silk, the red silk from Asshai. So starting with the silk, there's a little bit of a misconception here. The sentence about his red silk says that the Woods Witch sewed up his cloak with red silk from Asshai that washed up on a cog on the frozen shore. Some people have taken that to mean that the cog itself came from Asshai and sailed halfway around the world, and that's proof there's a Western Passage. That's not what happened. The silk is from Asshai. Those things get traded around the Seven Kingdoms, and it was on a normal trading cog that was near the frozen shore or somewhere in the Shivering Sea and broke apart and washed up on the frozen shore. So the boat isn't from Asshai. The silk is, though. And so this is just more Azor Ahai Knights King stuff. It doesn't make any sense any other way, really. But it does make a ton of sense if you think about Mance as symbolizing Azor Ahai turning into Night's King. So his black cloak of darkness is slashed with the blood red of Asshai. That's giving you the Asshai origin of Azor Ahai and dragons. It's giving you the red and black Targaryen colors. So you think of dragons and dragon lords with this King Beyond the Wall archetype. And like I said, Rhaegar tying into the same archetype as well. So there you go. And Jon ultimately will be, and this again, all reflecting off of Azor Ahai, who is the dragon lord that became the king of the others, which is again similar to the King Beyond the Wall. So there's that. There's also the narrative purpose of the red silk. It's very exotic, right? So everything that was not allowed by the Watch is what Mance left the Watch for: the music, the women, the laughter, the freedom. And the silk from a shy it's important because to the Woods Witch, again, Mance says it's the most valuable thing that she had, and she gave it up to help repair Mance. And similarly, her healing skill is the most valuable skill that she has, and she gives it unselfishly to Mance. To the Watch, like, wildlings could have just let him die. They had no reason really to help him. She could have pulled a Miriam's door, like, oh, I'm trying to help you, Drogo, and then actually she's not. So she didn't, though. And so for Mance to then be told, that conveys a lot of value onto the red silk, is the point. So when Mance goes back to the wall and they tell him that he's got to give it up, well, he can't give it up because it's not just red silk. It's the most valuable thing that this woman had, and it symbolizes the one splash of color that came into his life. So it's more than just the silk, but the fact that it's from a shy helps to add that value and that rarity to it so that it works on a thematic purpose. So it's serving a couple different purposes there. Now, the horn. The horn is very interesting. So Jon points out it's 8 feet long. Now, an aurochs is basically a prehistoric bull. It's just a big hairy oxen or a bull. The thing is, it's not much bigger than a regular bull or an ox, who are already really big. Long story short, it's not possible for an aurochs to have an 8-foot horn. Not possible. So it's not an aurochs horn. That's what I'm telling you. It is a dragon horn. It's identical to Dragonbinder in almost every respect. The size, the description, black and tall and twisted. The Horn of Winter, quote unquote, is banded with gold that has old runes of the first men, whereas Dragonbinder is banded with Valyrian steel that has Valyrian runes and glyphs. So they are so identical, it is not even funny. And yes, happy 420 Mountain Time. It's Rocky Mountain High. So there you go. This is a dragon horn that the first men, the ancient first men, somehow had up north. I don't know if it's like literally from the same dragon as Dragonbinder. That would be probably a little tinfoil. But the fact that it's described as the same size and with the similar descriptions, George wants us to compare the Dragonbinder horn and this supposed Horn of Winter. I think that has important ramifications for causing the long night and the role that the horns have to play and all that. I don't want to go down that road too much. But I just want to point out that this is a dragon horn. It kind of has to be. No, because a mammoth doesn't have horn. A mammoth has a tusk, and tusks are white. They don't have big black horns that look like an aurochs or a dragon horn. So it is not. It is not that. It is a dragon horn. So what is a dragon horn doing up north? Well, we are told that the maesters have dug up dragon skulls, or dragon bones, all around the world. And that's one way that we know that at one point in the long distant past, that dragons did span the globe, and that it's only now that they're only rarely found in like a Shire in Valyria or whatever. So that is a previous epoch. And of course, George is working with evolution. He does have a raptor-like dinosaur in Sithorios, and wyverns, which are kind of like pterodactyls and stuff like that. So I do think that George is imagining like an old prehistoric Westeros where the dragons roamed. So it could just be a dragon horn from something like that, just a random dragon, super old that they dug up or whatever. But it could have been Azor Ahai's dragon too. I just want to point that out. Azor Ahai was definitely a dragon lord. He definitely came to Westeros. He almost certainly came north and became Night's King, or fought Night's King, or did something like that. So that gives you a dragon north at the wall. Of course, there were dragons. The last hero is said to have beaten the others with dragon steel. So what's that? Where did that come from? Why would it even be called dragon steel? It's obviously a forerunner of Valyrian steel or something like that. Some sort of magical dragon association with it. So there's a billion clues. And I talked about this, of course, in my Great Empire of the Dawn videos, that Azor Ahai did bring his dragon to Westeros. So maybe this is Azor Ahai's dragon, this horn that they have. And of course, they're burning it in a scene where they're sacrificing an Azor Ahai stagman in the Weirwood cage, and then Stannis pulls out Lightbringer right afterwards. So there's all kinds of mythical astronomy symbolism exploding off the page there. Makes sense to see the horn catching fire. So yes, there you go. Just thought I'd point that out. So, do you think that is the Horn of Winter? Or is it the simple one that Jon found? And he makes the comparison that many have made to Indiana Jones and the Quest for the Holy Grail, Last Crusade. I forget what they're called. Not Last Crusade. It's the Holy Grail one. And of course, if you remember, Indiana's got to choose which Grail is correct. He's in the cave, he's passed all the tests. He gets to the Grail chamber. There's all these fancy cups. And he chooses the simple wooden cup because Jesus was a carpenter, so the Grail should be simple. And that was the right answer. And the guy that you chose poorly, he died and turned into a skeleton. So maybe it's like that, where these Dragonbinder horn and the one that Mance has that are big and ostentatious, those aren't the real ones. We want that, old chipped one that Jon found with the dragon glass. And of course, whoever hid the dragon glass there for Jon, trying to send important stuff to Jon. So if they put that horn in there, it must be important too. So obviously this is a strong theory. I don't like it though. I have to say, I hate that stupid horn. It doesn't make any noise and it's broken. I'm a much bigger fan of Dragonbinder. So I want to believe that Dragonbinder is the more important horn, but the more likely answer is that they're both important, is that the Horn of Winter is actually two different horns. Just like I've said that Lightbringer, the idea of Lightbringer probably encompasses both the white sword Dawn and the original black meteor sword of Azor Ahai, because you need two swords to make a good sword fight. And guys, to make a song, usually you need more than one voice so you can harmonize, right? So maybe we've got literally like a Horn of Winter and a dragon horn, a horn of fire, and they both have important roles to play. Maybe they'll even get tooted together at the same time. That might be too much magical tinfoil speculation or whatever, but I think they're both important. I'll say that. And the fact that Sam has the old horn at Old Town points to it being important. But of course, Euron is there, and he's the one who owns Dragonbinder. So these horns could be on a collision course, absolutely. Or at least they're magic. Genty M says, in the darkness that must have followed the doom and so many dragons dead, the White Walkers didn't make a move, clearly not what they're waiting for. Yet I wonder how the doom affected the White Walkers. Any symbolic ideas? Well, it's hard to say. We're not really told that there was any effect. We don't know if the White Walkers occasionally stir or not. I don't think they had anything to do with each other, honestly. I think the White Walkers have been waiting for Jon's birth, as I said in the Lord Snow video. They need that dragon Stark bloodline. They need that prince that was promised to the others. And that's why they're moving. And I think all the symbols of the Tower of Joy indicate that. So I don't think the doom probably had any effect on them. Some people have speculated that the level of magic in the world is tied to dragons. But if that's the case, it's probably tied to all magical creatures. And it could be the comet as well. So it's hard to say. It's very speculative. I thought I saw it's a sticker from Lady Dre 3030. Thank you. It was it's a white unicorn, kind of like a white stag. Oh, there's one from Jon Snow I missed too. Let me go back for that. There's the super sticker. Thank you. Jon Snow says, do you think there's any chance Dalla could be the same Dalla at Dragonstone mentioned in the prologue of Clash? Maybe Mance went there after Winterfell? It seems kind of out of the way. And he says he met her on the way back to the wall. Presumably on the other side of the wall. So probably not. However, I would look at Dalla on Dragonstone and compare her role to Dalla and see if there's a similar, because a lot of times people that are playing the same archetype have similar names. George loves to work that angle. So we should look at her chapters and see what she's doing. I don't even remember there being a character named that at Dragonstone, so I'll have to go back and look. Cool. Oh, whoops, that was the wrong one. Sorry. There we go. So I think you're right about which horn is which, but I think there is definitely symbolism from the broken horn. Maybe it's a ranger horn being broken. The watch will fail. Well, yeah. So the Horn of Winter breaks the wall too, right? And the dragon horn might help break the moon. So there's lots of breaking with these horn blowings. And of course, guys, obviously, as we talked about last week, Heimdallr blows the Gjallar horn to begin Ragnarok. So the idea of apocalyptic horns sort of signaling the last days is, it's not hard to see. So I think they're both important. That's the answer to that. And also, of course, a broken sword is important too, right? Last Hero's sword broke. There's all kinds of broken sword symbolism with all the Last Hero characters like Beric and elsewise. So the broken horn's probably similar to that. Oh, another tidbit. You notice how Mance, when he was beating Jon Snow up, he threatened to take out an eye. Of course, that's an Odin transformation symbolism. And again, Mance is the one who gives Jon the snowy cloak, takes him over to the wildlings. So again, we see Mance trying to transform Jon into an other, essentially. Pretty good stuff. And also, that's a Hermes thing too. Hermes brings enlightenment and understanding, works with communication. So that's a similar sort of role. Oh, it sounds like Goose is tired of being in his cage. Boromir's horn is broken in Lord of the Rings as well. Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, the Titan of Braavos has a broken sword. He's a hero from the sea. Yeah, just like Azor Ahai is reborn from the sea. The Titan of Braavos, his eyes appear to be like stars when Arya is sailing up to it. So guys, any last questions about Mance Raydar? We're 2 hours in. I've covered most of the symbolism. I've covered most of his scenes. I've talked about what I think he's going to do in the future. Oh, yes. So when he was at Winterfell, he was doing something. He was looking for the crypts, right? He was asking Theon and having the washerwomen ask Theon about the entrance to the crypts. He really wanted to find it. So that really raises a question. What is he looking for? Well, he's looking for his harp because he's Rhaegar. No, he's not. He's not looking for his harp. That's not the answer. But Mance Raydar knows all about the others. He knows about the Starks. He knows about the Horn of Winter and magical lore. So probably he was going down to the crypts to do what? To look for some sort of magical artifact or knowledge, or maybe he's looking for a secret passage. But more likely, I think he's looking for something magical down there. So what do you guys think? What was Mance looking for in the crypts? It's one of my biggest questions about Mance. So have at it in the comments, or after the video's over, if you're watching on a replay, put a comment in there, or you can pipe it up in the chat. But that's definitely the question for me. What was he looking for? The Winterfell crypts. Yeah, I don't like to say the T in crypts. It's like really hard. It's funny, you don't notice how much you mumble and slur words until you record a podcast and listen to yourself talk back. And you're like, man, I rolled all the consonants right out of that word. But yeah, crypts. It's very hard to say. It's a fucked up word, man. I hate that word. Every time it comes up, I just end up saying crypts, like Bloods and Crips. But there you go. So yeah, dragon's egg? Probably not. Probably not a dragon's egg. Looking for a place to hide. Yeah, that could be. Tunnels in and out. That is actually a good possibility. It does make sense. Rhaegar's harp. Yeah, possibly. The real Horn of Winter. He might have been. He might have known that the thing that got burned wasn't the real Horn of Winter. Maybe wasn't sure. Could have been looking for that. Yep. The Queen of Winter. Perhaps that would be really deep magical. We have speculated that Night's Queen is down in the Winterfell crypts. But I don't know if Mance would know to look for her. Searching for Lightbringer. Could be. That could be. He's definitely concerned about beating the others. He's surely heard of the last hero's Dragonsteel sword. So he could be looking for that. Yep. Underground Weirwood Forest. Maybe a Weirwood Throne. Okay, yeah. So is Mance's helm symbolic of Odin's ravens? Probably so, because we've seen, well, first of all, All of the Cernunnos horned lord stuff does tie into Odin. Odin is a horned lord figure. They're all tied to magic and stuff, particularly. So it's a lot of synergy between the elk, the white stag sort of symbolism that ties Mance to Herne the Hunter, and the idea of Odin. And of course, all the green seers get all their stuff from Odin. The Lord Commander of the Watch has a wolf and a raven. Jon Snow, he's literally got a raven and a wolf, just like Odin. So yes, definitely I would say that. Is that Batman and Robin? What kind of icon is that? What are they doing there? What's going on? Anyways, totally broke my... Yeah, so yes, it does make sense, obviously, to see Odin symbolism with Night's King figures. They all have Odin symbolism. And so the wings, yeah, because it's specifically not just a winged helm, but a raven wing helm. Yeah, so good point. That's not too off topic, Megan. Do you think playing around with the horn is what brought the others to the Fist of the First Men? It's possible. Although obviously Mance is saying that the others have been killing his people, more people than died attacking the wall. So the others and whites have been plaguing the wildlings for a while. So they may have just attacked the Night's Watch just for being there. But Jon did try to blow the horn at the Fist like a day before the others came. So that's very much a possibility. And also, you think about the Night's Watch, they have that whole thing where like 3 horn blasts. Where's my horn? I was playing the flute for some reason. 3 horn blasts means the others are coming, right? So the idea that the Horn of Winter calls the others is right there. In fact, Jon is talking about, or Sam rather, is thinking about the Horn of Winter that Jon found when they hear the 3 horn blasts that signal the white attack on the Fist of the First Men. So it's definitely suggested that the Horn of Winter could have called the others. I think that's a very strong possibility. And if it knocks down the wall, or can somehow, then that fits. The others are the ones who want to knock down the wall and invade Westeros. So there you go. Could Mance be a Stark? I don't think so. He said his... Whoops. It startles me when I set it off accidentally. I'm like, what was that? Anyways, he said his birth is as low and common as can be. It sounds to me like he's telling the truth there, but I don't know. Maybe he's lying. All right. Well, again, last call for questions, and then we're going to wrap it up. We are at 2 hours here, and I'm hungry. I didn't eat lunch before we started today. Also, yes, Euron sounds Dragonbinder at the King's Moot 3 times. That is true. So that kind of suggests that there's a similar idea here about blowing the horn and bringing the apocalypse, right? Because again, the horn blowing goes back to Ragnarok. It signals the apocalypse. So whether it's the dragon horn potentially being used to help break the moon and call the moon meteors, as I have been talking about, or the Horn of Winter, maybe it breaks the wall or calls the others. Kind of like all of these things are stuff that we're looking to happen when the new long night falls. So there should be no doubt that these are apocalyptic horns. And again, Martin is constantly conflating Dragonbinder and Horn of Winter. Mance pulls out the quote-unquote fake Horn of Winter, and it looks just like Dragonbinder. Dragonbinder is blown 3 times, just as you blow the horn 3 times to announce the others are coming. So, yes. It's called a theremin. Correct spelling, theremin, yes. It's a baby theremin. So the real theremin has these 2 wands. And a real theremin person has their hands and they're like moving them very precisely and doing these things to make notes, and they can control it instead of just making it go ree, 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 ree. They can actually like play songs with it. What I have is this little thing. It's from Hiwatt, and it's just a little, so I kind of, so it is kind of wizard-like. It's fun, but there you go. No problem, Igorius. I think I gave you a patron nickname this week, didn't I? Oh, yes, there are meteors tonight. The Geminids, last night and tonight are the best nights to see them. And you can go out pretty much anytime tonight, I think, and see them as long as you're in a place where the sky doesn't have light pollution. And all the meteor shots in the Lord Snow video are shots of the Geminid meteor shower. So I've been using Geminids as my Lightbringer. You know, that one picture of that one big blue meteor that I overlay on the Dawn sword on Mobo Bohm's Arthur Dane. That's a Geminid meteor. That's Wally Pacholka, that photo. So there you go. Oh, Genty, don't apologize. Your questions are great. Thank you. But again, last call for questions. Get them in right now, and then we go shut them down. Let me check, bounce back over to PayPal. All right, that's the same as it was. All right. So, like I said, Lord Snow video is doing well. You guys seem to be liking that. Thank you very much for all the good comments. And I am going to do a live stream this week. Probably do it on Wednesday as a Jon Snow follow-up live stream. I will announce that soon. Of course, follow me on Twitter at @TheDragonLML. Make sure you click the subscribe button and then click the bell and then click all notifications so you always get notified when I go live and you won't miss the stream. But yeah, we're going to follow up on all that Jon Snow stuff because I laid out the symbolism that Jon's body is going to be stolen by the others. But I want to talk more about the mechanics of how it could work. People are asking me like, well, where is his body? Which side of the wall is it on? And how's that all going to work? So we'll have an open discussion and we'll talk about some of the ways in which that could actually work and how that can play out. And a couple of symbolisms that I left out. So probably do that on Wednesday, like I said. And do I think Mance wrote the pink letter? So we talked about that, Quinn and I, on the Chaos at the Wall, Winds of Winter preview, but we were quickly shouted down. We were super basic, and we said that probably Ramsay did write it. And then people came in the comments with points that I hadn't considered. So I don't really know who wrote the damn letter. I'm just kind of waiting to see on that one. That's not the kind of puzzle that I'm usually the best at solving. So feel free to speculate in the comments about who you think wrote the pink letter. I think it was. If it wasn't Ramsay, I do think Mance probably makes the most sense, you know, but there's reasons why Stannis might have done it too, I guess. So, or someone that's pro Stannis. But yeah, I guess Mance is the next best choice after Ramsay. All right, folks, I will go ahead and bid you adieu. And real quickly, if you have not signed up for the Paradise Gained by David Beer's mailing list, that's the book I'm writing. Do me a solid. Just all I'm asking for you now is your email address. Wex wrote the letter. I like that. I like that. So yeah, Wex is good at writing. We know that. That's the link right there. It'll be in the description of the video if it's not already. Or you can just look up Paradise Gained on Indiegogo. And that's about symbolism, sacred symbolism, religion, not interpreting religion literally, Joseph Campbell ideas and stuff like that. And of course, you can find T-shirts. That link is definitely now at the bottom of the video. That's integrated into YouTube and stuff, but there it is. Go to Teespring, find that. Oh, yes. So, guys, happy Sunday. Enjoy the meteor show tonight. And I will see you on Wednesday with a Jon Snow live stream. And then next week, by the way, if you're a patron, I'm now letting my patrons vote on these character studies. So we'll have to see who goes next week. There will be some weeks when I might choose to do one just because it fits in with the flow of what we're talking about. But my patrons chose Mance Raydar, and he fits in with the Jon Snow stuff very well, as you can see. So that kind of worked out perfectly. But I am going to cover some of the characters I'm thinking about covering. Rohan Weber, Brienne of Tarth. I want to do Jaqen H'ghar. I want to do... I will do a Jaime one just because I haven't done enough Jaime symbolism. And Rohan Weber is going to be awesome, by the way. That's just going to take us in. It's basically just going to be the sworn sword symbolism, which is awesome. So yeah, I've got some good stuff planned for you guys. Maybe a Val one. She's popular, she's cool, all that stuff. So hey there, Katie. Thanks for the applause. Thanks, Megan. Thanks, everyone. And